happy to announce our resource speaker for today, Ma'am Judy Tagiwalo, who is joining us as part of the Philippine Center for Anti-Imperialist Studies and also a member of the National Executive Committee of Bayan Philippines. Ma'am Judy is a pillar in the movement for national sovereignty in the Philippines, and she continues to stand alongside the exploited and oppressed in their fight against foreign domination. A big part of her consciousness raising was as a student activist fighting against the Vietnam War. So let's welcome Ma'am Judy Tagiwalo.
Hi, good morning, everyone from the Philippines, and good evening, wherever you are in the United States. So I'm happy to be with you today. I think I'm the only boomer here in a crowd of millennials and Gen Z. But it's always a privilege for me to be able to interact with young people. It makes me feel young. Okay, so I'll start my presentation. Okay, thank you for mayaman ang Pilipinas pero naghihirap ang mamayan. The Philippines is a rich country but its people are poor. This describes in a nutshell our homeland. We have fertile soil, inland water formation and open seas as sources of food and marine life, and we are very rich in mineral resources, both inland and under the sea. This condition of rich country and poor people is partly explained by a history of colonialism, 300 years in the convent and 50 years in Hollywood, as one Filipina writer said, 300 years under Spanish colonialism and 50 years under direct US colonialism. That history continues to shape the socio-political and economic situation and relations both domestically and internationally of the Philippines. An economic elite who are composed of big compradors owning banks, utilities, transport systems, and other big businesses in the country, and big landlords are also the political elite and comprise and or support political dynasties. Families occupying several positions in government. We have the bureaucrat capitalists, government officials who use their power to transform public money into personal wealth through corruption, bribery, extortion, and other means. All of them, in one way or another, have partnerships with foreign businesses and foreign governments, especially the United States and Japan, and now more and more with China. I've been asked to focus on the current political situation, particularly the question of Philippine sovereignty, the expanded military presence of the United States and its allies in the country, and the Pax Silica initiative. Next slide, please. The return of open U.S. military presence in the Philippines. In 1991, I don't think many of you were born then. But in 1991, a strong anti-bases movement and a Senate majority who took a patriotic position voted to end the RPUS military bases agreement with the principal argument that the presence of foreign military bases are inconsistent with Philippine sovereignty. The two U.S. bases, Subic Naval Base and Clark Air Base, which were used extensively during the U.S. war of aggression against Vietnam, were turned over to the Philippines, and the last U.S. military forces left by December 1992. Next slide. But they're back. By 1998, the Visiting Forces Agreement, and by 2014, with the signing of the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or EDCA, allowed U.S. military sites, troops, weapons, and exercises on Philippine soil. EDCA particularly, under the BFA, allows U.S. forces rotational access to agreed Philippine military bases, allowed the construction of facilities within agreed location, allowed prepositioning of defense equipment, supplies, and fuel, and allowed joint training and supposedly disaster response activities. Originally covering 5 Philippine military sites, EDCA has expanded to 9 agreed locations when Marcos Jr. took office, including sites in northern Luzon and Palawan, which do not face the South China Sea, but are close to China and Taiwan. Next slide. Now we have on Philippine soil U.S. missiles, new U.S. missiles, the Typhoon missile system, which is a land-to-land mid-range missile, has been brought to the Philippines in 2024, supposedly on a temporary basis, but has been here for several years now. And the Philippines is the first country to receive this latest missile of the United States. We have become the laboratory. It was tested in California, I think in 2019 or 2022, brought to the Philippines in 2024, and they reported successful transport through air and through land. The Typhoon missile is able to reach the outer sections of mainland China. So you have that kind of range. Japan has also the Typhoon missile complements of the United States, and its reach is able to target the center of China. So we're looking at defense weapons of the United States targeting China. Okay, this is the presence of military forces, the use of the Philippines practically as as a base of the United States are, we believe, violations of Philippine sovereignty. It affects independent decisions, decision making, and fosters dependence on U.S. military support. In fact, we believe the Philippine loss of a Security Council seat recently can be partly attributed by some as a rejection of other countries because of the perception that the Philippines is a handmaid of the United States. Unequal legal arrangements, questions have been raised regarding jurisdiction over crimes committed by U.S. personnel and the extent of Philippine legal authority within EDCA and the BFA. It also posits the risk of entanglement in major power rivalry. EDCA sides could make the Philippines a frontline state in a conflict involving the United States and the People's Republic of China. The experience of Gulf states with U.S. military bases in the United States war in Iran provides a glimpse of what could happen to the Philippines if war breaks out between the United States and China. Although not permanent bases in the legal sense, some critics contend that extensive U.S. access, infrastructure construction, and equipment storage resemble many functions historically associated with military bases. Next slide, please. So we have now Cagayan de Oro in southern Philippines, which provides refueling stations for American ships and American planes. I think this happened right after the start of the Iran war because the location of Lumba Airport is inside the Philippines rather than outside. So it provides a safer place for U.S. military planes to refuel. And they're also planning to build another one in Davao. So the expansion of U.S. military bases and U.S. military storage facilities are ongoing. Next slide. So this is happening more and more in the context of the Philippine maritime disputes with China, which is used as justification for expanded U.S. military presence in the country. The issue it is actually China's activities in the South China Sea or the West Philippine Sea, which is fundamentally a dispute over sovereign rights, maritime jurisdiction, natural resources, and regional security. The Philippines is not the only one in conflict with China over China's occupation of what other countries, including the Philippines, claim as their own. This claim overlaps with the exclusive economic zones of the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and Indonesia. But it is only the Philippines which has allowed the United States to use this pretext to enable it to build more and more military facilities and to have more and more military exercises. Actually, on a daily basis, there is an ongoing military exercise between the United States and the Philippines, between other allied countries of the United States and the Philippines. So we would like to emphasize that rather war, we should use diplomacy, regional cooperation to avoid escalation to independent foreign policy that is not aligned to the United States or Chinese interests but asserts Philippine interests and sovereignty, which is the track being used by Vietnam and other countries. But Washington has used tension in the West Philippine Sea to justify a larger military footprint in the Philippines. We have seen that, more EDCA sites, and then more frequent military exercises, etc. And then, so in effect, through the military presence of the United States, the Philippines has become a frontline state in the US-China rivalry. Next slide. The geopolitical landscape, unlike before, where the United States reigned supreme as the superpower, as the sole superpower in the world, the current landscape is now characterized by a multipolar relationship with China, Russia, and other countries competing with the United States. Next slide. In the economic sphere, we are witness to trade wars, technology restrictions, competition over semiconductors, military buildup, struggles for influence in Africa, Latin America, and Asia. And it has translated to struggles over control or dominance over artificial intelligence, rare earth minerals, energy supplies, advanced manufacturing. So, this is where the Pax Silica comes in. Next slide. What is the Pax Silica initiative? Pax Silica is supposed to be a piece related to artificial intelligence and to technology. Pax Silica is a recent US-led multinational initiative launched only in December 2025 to build secure supply chains for, next slide, artificial intelligence, semiconductors, including computer chips, critical minerals, nickel, lithium, cobalt, rare earths, advanced electronics, data centers, and digital infrastructure. This initiative is supposed to enable the United States and its allies to control the supply chains from raw material extraction to actual production as well as distribution. The idea is to create a trusted network of countries that can cooperate on advanced technology production while reducing dependence on strategic rivals, particularly China. China right now has the dominance over critical minerals production, as well as other aspects of the supply chains. Okay, what does this mean for the Philippines? Next slide. So for the Philippines, the PAC Silica initiative seeks to position the country as a hub for semiconductor and critical technology production, aligned with the United States supply chains. Far from a neutral program for industrial growth, PAC Silica represents a deeper integration of the Philippine economy into U.S. militarized production system. That is the site. That is the proposed site of the Luzon Economic Corridor. This is about 1 hour from Manila, and it is close to Clark Air Base. More than 1,600 hectares or 4,000 acres have been reserved for this so-called Luzon Economic Corridor, which is the physical site of the PAC Silica initiative in Asia. Okay. At its core, PAC Silica is anchored in the extraction and processing of critical materials, nickel, cobalt, and related inputs essential to semiconductor manufacturing and advanced electronics. These materials form the base of vertically integrated chain from mining to chip production. While it is framed as economic security and supply chain resilience, this structure ultimately serves external strategic and military requirements rather than national development. Next slide, please. Semiconductors and advanced electronics are central to contemporary warfare embedded in drones, and we have seen how drones played an important role in the attack on Iran as well as in the defense of Iran, missile system, surveillance network, and communication infrastructure. By embedding production facilities within U.S. aligned supply chains, the Philippines being positioned, next slide. The Philippines is being positioned as a support node in a war-related production networks, supplying key technological inputs for sustained military operation. So we've seen while military exercises, military missile provisioning, and other military-related activities prepare the military terrain, PAC Silica consolidates the economic infrastructure that sustains it. Together, the expanded military presence and exercises in the country and the Luzon Economic Corridor through the PAC Silica initiative reflect a coordinated transformation of the Philippines into both a logistical base and production site within U.S. power projection, the U.S. Asia-Pacific region. So we're not just only a frontline country in terms of U.S. presence, we're also a major production hub in the U.S. Asia-Pacific plans. Next slide. So I think I discussed the issue of sovereignty, but there are also impact on other aspects. So we're talking of impact on water, environment, and legal implication. So a recent article actually discussed that the Philippines is facing a challenge of water bankruptcy with water demand outpacing nature supply. This is government statement. The Luzon Economic Corridor, which is going to be located in Central Luzon. Central Luzon, the same report stated, have the highest water districts in Central Luzon have the highest average water deficit. Semiconductor manufacturing center is water intensive. A large chip fabrication plant can use roughly 37 to 38 million liters of water a day. So you can imagine the massive impact on the lives of people who right now are already suffering from water deficit as well as rotating brownouts. What impact would this be in terms of their access to water as well as power. Next slide. There is also the environmental impact, the devastation caused by mining. So we have the impact of mining extraction. I cannot read my own slide here, but I hope you can read it. We have seen mining as highly extractive, destroying ancestral lands, water sources, and forests to be able to extract critical minerals which will be used to produce military weapons. And there is also, next slide, the legal implications, which the United States has stated that it wants the U.S. common law and diplomatic immunity inside the Luzon Economic Corridor. The Philippines has supposedly denied this, but the negotiations are ongoing. And then we're talking 1,600 hectares of Philippine land in a country where majority of the farmers do not have access to land. This will be under foreign control of land and strategic industries. Again, this is going to be a legal issue. Next slide. But as our own history has shown us, where there is oppression, there will always be resistance. Currently, there are various forms of resistance against the PAC Silica initiative, the Luzon Economic Corridor, the continuing violation of our sovereignty, the destruction of our environment. And this includes the setting up of barricades. Residents of Barangay Bitnong of Nueva Vizcaya are bravely barricading against Wogol Mining Corporation, defending over 3,000 hectares of ancestral land threatened by gold and copper extraction. In the Cordilleras, the site of our indigenous peoples of the north, the Igorots, the Tuwali Ifugao people endured decades of Oceana gold splendor with a demolished mountain, a dozen water sources dried up, violent dispersals, and 29 barricaders arrested during the pandemic. The resistance of the people of Dupax, as well as the people of Didiplo, are seared into the history of this struggle. Next slide. People's protests, including rallies in front of the U.S. Embassy, which is always, confrontational because the police and other military personnel prevent our organizations from coming close to the United States. But we continue to assert our right to protest and to demand justice from the United States and to assert our sovereignty. Next slide. And this is one of the creative forms of protest. So I think the Science and Technology Organization brought to the rally miniature figure of the Luzon Economic Corridor being carried by Trump, by Marcos Jr., and by Netanyahu, Israel. But the Luzon Economic Corridor they brought was actually a piece of cake. And the protesters showed how these three countries are gobbling up Philippine sovereignty, Philippine resources through this PAC Silica initiative. It was an actual cake. Next slide. And yesterday, in the parliamentary arena, the Makabayan Bloc, composed of 3 party list representatives representing the teachers, the youth, and women, filed the House resolution to investigate the PAC Silica as a foreign-backed economic and security projects and the Luzon Economic Corridor. So we are doing several fronts to protest, to resist this latest US imperialist project. So, in conclusion, the Filipino people must not be reduced to suppliers of raw materials, cheap labor, and strategic territory for imperialist plunder and wars. The struggle against Pax Silica is inseparable from the struggle against foreign military presence, unequal agreements, imperialist domination, and the defense of our environment and ancestral lands. No to war production disguised as development. No to the Philippines as a supply chain outpost for imperialist plunder and war. Fight for genuine national industrialization and economic development. Uphold Philippine sovereignty. That's the end of my presentation. Maraming salamat po and good evening.